Yeah.
Okay, so over to you, Jane. Bit of background, and then we can perhaps ask you a few questions, if that's all
Okay,
right.
very quickly, I grew up with a petrol head dad who had a vintage Rolls Royce and lots of classic cars and classic buses. So driving has been a huge part of my life, proper driving in proper vehicles. But also my husband drove big Arctic lorries for the TAs as well. So when I passed my test, second time, not the first at all, I had a Morris 1000 and I scared my husband to death because we'd only just met. And so he doesn't have advanced driving as such, but I think with the TA's driving, he did have a lot of skills. So he taught me. I'd love to do my advanced driving, but I'm a bit scared, probably very rusty. But well, phenomenal, all of you guys as well, and all of your skills. And I think it's really important. It's another way to raise your roles as well, hugely. So basically, at the end of the day, I'm a dementia. I've worked in the field of dementia since about 1985. Started out as care assistant in a nursing home. I've always had a passion and an interest in neuroscience and people's brains. So I was interested in the brain, and qualified as a nurse, and then worked in hospitals, ITU, various places, but then ended up working in the memory clinic in Bath and then moved over to the memory clinic in Cardiff. And that's where the driving issue really started to come to the fore because I was involved in helping support people through their diagnosis of dementia. I used to run a self-referral memory clinic in Malmesbury, which was very much about people could refer if they had any problems that they've, a lot of people had depression that was affecting their cognition. So there's all sorts of things that will affect someone's cognition anyway. Stress, depression, menopause, all those things. And then, oh God, I've been around quite a lot. I've managed a nursing home as well. And then my PhD, which is all around how we communicate with someone who has dementia, on the sensory side, very sensory side of things. But I've also, from an interesting, I suppose one of the most pertinent parts of my experience was I worked with Andrea Tales, who's now a professor, and all her work is around visual processing and attention and Alzheimer's disease. So I've really started to explore attention a lot more, and I think this is the one area particularly with, I've noticed I had shingles myself, realised my attention when I'm driving isn't as good as it used to be. So I think that's a whole area we need to look at in terms of perhaps training staff in and understanding also what you're looking at as well. So I've been around rather a long time. I set up my dementia training company, and I'm battling and struggling to get, even though I have massive evidence that my training changes practice. It's been evaluated by Swansea University, but oh God, can I get anyone to commission it? I'm skint as anything at the moment, struggling, which is really sad. So, but one last thing I was going to say, Graham, this last few weeks, I've been creating what's called click funnels. So, which is something that DriveTalk could benefit from, although it's driven me nuts. It's create, when you perhaps go onto social media and you see something, people are advertising something, and then they take you to a page and then you sell it and then all of that. That's what I've been building the last month. So I've got loads of experience, although it's driven me nuts, on that's very much about perhaps thinking about where DriveTalk could go eventually,
What we
thinking
need.
of on Facebook, people are struggling, worried, blah, 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 click through, and then you have these funnels that'll take you to wherever, maybe it's to arrange a session with someone, or so there's lots of experience I've
Yeah.
got there, and in building websites as well.
So you understand ClickFunnels more or less, because I've never heard of them until you mentioned them. And
Oh, well, I
I'm a
didn't.
starter here. I'm sort of
Well,
finding
I was a
out more.
starter a month ago. Believe me, it's. I was
Really?
just saying to my husband now. I wish I knew what I. I wish I knew what I knew. I wish I knew then a month ago what I know now. So you could benefit from what the pain I've gone through in the last months
Yeah.
of developing that,
Oh God.
and hope it'll be very much for something that we could look at, develop
Yeah.
it with
Brilliant.
your I side of things and raising
Yeah.
awareness.
No, I'm sure it will. And if we can work together, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Just welcome Dave. Thanks for coming along, Dave. Jane has just given us a background of what she's been involved with. And Jane, could you just sort of reinforce what your because you told me before what your service actually offers, your
Yeah.
main line of business, if you like, what you do and who you talk to, and
Yeah,
um,
so I've got an online learning platform, that was another learning curve, which delivers training to health and social care staff. And there's one specific one is about the dementia review, because in primary care, anyone who's got a diagnosis of dementia, so we don't know about the millions of people that don't, um, GPs have to do this dementia review. Now, what troubles me quite a lot is it's being farmed out to healthcare assistants who have no experience whatsoever. So I've developed this training. I'm hoping eventually people will commission it, but it gives great knowledge and insights for primary care. And of course, this is the area where we're looking at with driving.
yeah,
So I met with Charles, because that's how we met, wasn't it, Graham, through my
yeah,
lovely friend Charles Musselwhite, who's professor, and all his sort of area is around transport, isn't it, really?
yeah.
Uh,
I'll just come in there quickly because Charles Musselwhite's been very supportive. I don't really know him. Jane knows him very well, but he's also supportive of what we're doing, and he's one of the primary academic researchers which touches on older drivers' modes of transport. And he gave the key speech in the opening speech in the recent Mature Drivers National Conference. So he's really well known, and Jane knows him very well. So yeah.
yeah, so Charles is we did a little film together, but actually I want to do a film with all of
Mm.
you, which would be
Oh,
great.
that'd be brilliant. Yeah,
Because you've all got that expertise, you've all got that amazing practice background, of which I have in dementia, and this is what frustrates me a
yeah,
lot, is because we know what we're talking about. You've sat next to how many people,
yeah.
and and absorbed all of that
Yes.
knowledge and that expertise, and you can't learn that from a book.
No. Uh,
So
Yeah, I think what we both agree on is that, if we take Charles, for example, fantastic academic, uses all his experience on his research to put across the key points. And there's other people like that, and they're really, really valuable. But he'd be the first to recognize that where there aren't, when you're talking about driving and dementia, there's not really any statistics or any data to tell you quite how it affects people.
mm,
So all the policies that are out there about older drivers, you have to go this way and you can't go to ADIs and stuff like that, are all based on part of the information.
yeah.
And it's really annoying is the right word, but it's surprising really that they don't use our expertise, our lived experience, and that's the same with you, isn't
And
it? The
that's where
doctors are doing
I mean,
certain
if I
things.
can get Charles to get some funding, because I
Yeah,
was a bit of an academic. I mean, Charles actually examined my PhD for me. That's how we met.
yeah,
But if we can, but I've bypassed, to be honest, I've bypassed academia, because I've written a few papers. By the time you write them, 30 years down the line before anything happens. That's why I wrote my book, People in the Real World, So it's about, there may be a way we could get research that would
yeah.
back up
Be
driving,
fantastic. Yeah,
which would be great as a sideline thing. Um, yeah,
yeah,
because I think there is so much, and I know from being in the memory clinic, um, everyone driving is the biggest issue usually. I was just training a few staff. I mentioned this to you a while ago, Graham, didn't I? That I was training a few staff online in Pennine, and these are all, some of them are memory clinic nurses, and they just don't know where to go. They hate the question
yeah,
totally. And then
exactly.
so everyone bats it off to the DVLA. I'm from Swansea, by the way. Everyone bats it off to the DVLA. But what does the DVLA know? And then you've
Yeah,
got some of the problem is as well, what happened was I was part of two memory clinics that have been around for a very long time. When the drugs got licensed for Alzheimer's disease quite a few years ago, which I worked on the drug trials for, suddenly memory clinics built up everywhere. This is the history of them, because they needed some vehicle to prescribe the drugs. But I do question some of that expertise in some of the memory clinics as well. You know, that the
Yeah, yeah,
professors and the doctors that I worked with had, you know, they had about 20 odd years. We've all grown up in dementia. Whereas
yeah.
a lot of these, you know, you've got staff now and they're like, we haven't
We
got a
just
clue.
don't understand it.
Mm.
No.
Um,
One of the things I've found, and you may be able to, I think I know the answer to this, but you know, I'll ask you anyway. One of the things I found, when when we run in the Hampshire scheme, when I was running the Hampshire scheme, and it's still running now, Jane's still working for it. Um, all
Brilliant.
the contacts we had on board, the medical contacts, the consultants, the GPs, the memory nurses, the all sorts of things on board. They were really grateful to us
I bet.
because, you know, it's passing the buck. The
Yeah,
GP doesn't
yeah.
have to tell somebody. So fantastic support from them. They'd send people to us. That's why we did so many. And we got Hampshire County Council backing us, you know. When
Mm.
I moved down to Bournemouth area and retired, I started initially initially contacting all the older persons' mental health teams, the consultants. I tried to get phone calls with them and all sorts. I went into doctors' surgeries. Um, and I got very little response. I got some real interest from one particular GP surgery, and they've sent me one assessment request. There must be more than that needed. But there seems to be a reluctance, particularly for someone that's starting out here without the backing of a local authority.
Mm.
Um, and
Well, old
I
age
think,
psychiatrists
yeah,
are notoriously, you can't get hold of anyone. You
no,
know, GPs are really hard to get hold of. So I'm wondering that we could be looking at ways to raise awareness,
yes,
you know, and we could
that would be
something
great
like,
if we could
you
get
know,
into the sort of medical professional side, and just so they're aware of what we're doing in the website. And I know it's all got to build, it's got to get a bit more support than it has at the moment, and a bit more
what
professional, if you
what
like.
what I
But
could do, Graham, is I connect to the primary care training hubs because I've been trying to market my training. Some have
yeah,
some have taken me up, some haven't. But
mhm,
we could put something to them to say, you know, anyone interested. That then
yeah,
goes out to their primary, you know, it's finding those people, those
yeah.
ambassadors. That might help. So
So if we for example, if myself and you and anybody else is interested, really, made a little very short sort of video about what the service is, and you would give the backing of the medical side that you're supporting this approach, if you would be willing to do that, and then rather than just an ADI, effectively is all I am.
you never
Um,
just, no, please
no,
don't
no,
say that.
I didn't want to, but you know, when you talk about medical stuff,
Oh yeah, but I hate that. I hate that hierarchy. Your
yeah,
expertise.
I know.
That's the first thing you've got to stop doing, right?
Yeah, okay.
You
So
are the experts here,
me
okay?
being a non-medical person
No,
going in
but
to
no,
talk to a load of doctors, it'd
right.
be
So you're not a non-medical person. You are right. You've got to get used to this, all of you. What you
okay.
are, right? You've got to start saying, "I'm absolutely marvelous. I have ADI. Explain what ADI is, and I have all this experience." So
Yeah,
yeah.
sat with all these
So
people. Yeah, okay. No,
yeah.
I agree with you there. Yeah, that's a good point. But
Hmm.
you know, I still think with somebody with your background and somebody from my background, for example, getting in front of a lot of medical professionals, if we could do that, having a little video, a short video, nothing too
Yeah.
long, just to say, this is the problem, this is what we
Yeah.
propose, this is what we've done in Hampshire. Are you interested in looking at this website or whatever? Something like that.
Yeah. Well,
And then
I'm not saying are you. You need to
you
be.
need to,
You
yeah,
need to be
it's
looking at
crucial that
this.
you understand
Yeah.
this is where
And we have some
we can help
statistics
family
and
members. We can help
yeah,
you report to DVLA because you never see the drivers. So we can be in there. And then
yeah.
the other uh, men and women around the table, lads and ladies, I was going to say around the in the meeting here, um, will
Advanced driving
and
instructors.
well, exactly, but all the other um, sort of 60 or 70 people on our list will benefit from potentially starting to get some work if they're doctors in the local areas. I mean, the first, my thought is just as I'm doing down here for you guys, I guess, who haven't at the moment had much experience in this is, and then Jane, I don't know if you've got a view on this or you know much about it, but stroke rehab teams,
I know
because
someone. I know
because
one of my former students, she's a
yeah,
physio and she's done loads on
yeah.
stroke rehab. I could get in touch with Linda.
Well, brilliant, yeah,
Yeah,
because that's something I understand more and more now. And the thing is with stroke rehab is you you don't you don't have to know a hell of a lot. You don't have to have my experience to do this. You you just need to know about what to look for because all they send you rehab teams are people that are probably okay to return to driving after the standard 4 or maybe longer recovery time. But on the Rookwood, I don't know if everybody's heard of that or not, but it's a cognitive test that they do after stroke. Well, the Rookwood battery of tests come out a bit borderline. So almost certainly the person's okay, but they want to do a practical driving assessment just to check. And then you
yeah.
fill in one of these forms. It's a great way to get into it because occasionally you'll get things like I had today. The bloke was 93, fantastic driver, but he was clinging the left-hand curb and occasionally scraping against it. And I think that was possibly a little bit of, spatial awareness issue, stuff like that. So stroke rehab teams, really
Yeah,
good
well,
place to
I
get
could,
into.
if I can, I mean, I taught a little bit on the Masters in Stroke Research, and I met one of the students was Linda, who's a physio who's all around, so I could perhaps introduce her to the group if she's
Yeah,
up for it. So I don't know if
yeah,
she is, but we can try.
yeah.
Again, if we can get more expert people with specific, because another thing, I wouldn't go for the older driver actually, because we know there are issues with other people who are doing that. I'd go for we're looking at dementia, we're looking at stroke. It can happen to younger people,
Yeah.
people with sensory difficulties,
So
all of
it's
that. So
so
dementia's affecting younger people more and
so
more.
almost take the word from this particular approach out, the word older out of it. It's
Yeah,
just for
take the word older out. I
people
would.
with yeah. Well, that's a
Yeah,
really
maybe new sensory cognitive issues that can happen to people at
yeah,
any
no,
age,
sure.
actually.
I've got a little question from the talk you just did just now, but has anybody else got anything to ask Jane that don't worry, there's never a stupid question.
No,
Anybody
no,
else
there
want to know
isn't.
anything? Or
Can I just notice move? Oh, sorry, Kathy, go on.
Tiffany.
No, I was just gonna I'm gonna ask because my dad suffered from Parkinson's and then it was either dementia or Alzheimer's, and I don't know what the difference is.
Okay. There are they're the difficulty with the word dementia. It covers so many different conditions.
Hmm.
So Alzheimer's disease is very different from perhaps the Parkinson's disease dementia or a Lewy body dementia, which we think might be the same condition. So,
Mm.
and this is where there's a huge issue around the word dementia because someone who has Alzheimer's disease will present very differently than someone who has, which you've probably found. So you can have a mixed dementia. So some people can have both, different types. But usually what we have with Parkinson's disease dementia or Lewy body dementia could be the same thing. It depends on how their symptoms are, but that will be affecting them in a very different way. So it'll be much more, they may have a tremor, they may be more at risk of falling early on, they may have more hallucinations, delusional sort of things early on, whereas someone who has Alzheimer's disease, dependent, everyone's different.
Had he had the early so because he had Parkinson's first and then he was diagnosed with dementia and he got those early symptoms, what you're describing. But he
Yeah.
was a professional driver all his life. He was a bus
Oh,
driver.
oh,
So
right. Gosh,
similar
it's
to
really pertinent to you then, isn't it?
and he was driving, he lived up in Cumbria and had an accident on a roundabout and he couldn't fathom out what had gone on. So he gave his license up then and
Yeah.
then he was diagnosed with all of that. So
Oh gosh, that was traumatic for him, wasn't it?
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That was his life. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, from the family's point of view, Kathy, at that time, um, can you sort of recognize what we're trying to do to help other families in the same position?
Oh,
Where you
100%.
getting?
Yeah. Because the other thing is that my stepmom could drive, but he did all the driving.
It's
So
classic.
Yeah,
when
familiar.
he couldn't drive anymore, it was over to her and her driving was atrocious. It's really bad. Unfortunately, she's now in the same position. She's in a nursing home with dementia now.
Oh,
But even when she didn't have it, driving was just awful because she
I,
didn't practice it.
I think that generation more, that's changing
Mm,
now, I think. But when I worked in the memory clinic
mm,
when I started then, that was sort of mid 90s, very classic. And often we'd have wives or spouses who would hide the issue because the husband was always the one who drove, and it was having a huge impact on what was happening. Well, my in-laws are the same actually. She won't drive, and she's sort of getting the whip out to make him drive when so yeah, I think over time that might change, but definitely, yeah, that whole sort of dependence. It's not just the
mm,
person, it impacts everybody. Yeah.
The other thing on I mean that's a great point, Kathy, about different types of dementia. Thanks, Jane, for clearing that up a little bit. But the other thing is particularly tied into when we do assessments is having just a little understanding of, for example, this is how I understand it. With Alzheimer's, you can go on fairly level for a couple of years. So if you assess somebody one day and they're fine, the chances are 6 months' time or even a year's time, they may be still fine. You don't know,
mm,
but then you
No,
may be. I've
no.
seen it. Whereas other types of dementia, I don't know particularly which one, you can get somebody on a good day, and then a couple of weeks later they can room straight downhill and be
Yeah.
dangerous when you see
Vascular
them as
dementia.
okay.
Yeah,
So you
so
have to
vascular.
bear that into account.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at the person, their whole health. So I'm seeing it with my mum. I mean, she's just had to give up driving now. Driven her, she hates the fact that she can't drive, and but I just notice her cognitively, she's not quite
mm,
there a little bit, and her attention. And again, I go back to attention. I think that's key.
Yeah,
And that's something we could be exploring more. And again,
yeah, I'd
maybe I
like
could get Andrea on board. Even if we could
yeah,
just have like a group of experts that could dip
yeah,
in and out that would be helpful in those specific areas, because
yeah.
that is totally is all around that visual
Because
processing.
because what I'd like to do is redesign the form we use, which is currently very basic in terms of was there any evidence of not cognitive, was there any evidence of multitasking difficulties? Was there any evidence of spatial awareness problems? Was there any evidence of concentration? And maybe just trying to use terms which, because these reports go to doctors and DVLA doctors,
Mm.
maybe using terms which fit more with the science, if you like you said.
As long as the people understand as well. I'd still
Oh
carry on
yeah,
with what they're asking, but maybe put with concentration, we could put attention in brackets.
attention. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
in
I
a
mean,
way, I
people
think maybe.
understand attention. And the reports, to be honest, are mainly directed at the medical professionals,
Yeah,
whereas the driver always gets a copy, but the wording in the boxes will.
yeah,
I mean, I think it still stay pretty good. So that'd be really useful.
yeah. I'd be
Um,
happy to have a look at that with you as
yeah,
well.
be
Um,
fantastic. I know how busy you are.
oh well, only because I'm skint. I'm working my butt off to
Yeah,
get.
really.
And that's how sad it is at the
Well,
moment.
if we can help you in any way, we will. If we can come to get contacts of anybody, you tell us,
Thank you. I know
um,
it's a huge issue. This is what I'm
yeah,
struggling
I
with. It's a
know.
huge issue out there, and people just don't want to talk about it until they're
No, and
faced with it.
I mean, where we are is that most people are employed in their day-to-day business, and they've got a real interest for whatever reason in getting into this a bit on a piece basis. I'm retired, so I'm getting my pension, so there's not a massive financial. I can spend time on this without
Yeah,
getting any income from it. I then get my income from assessments now and again. But of course, for you, the whole point, not the whole point, but one of the most important points is you've got to be able to survive
I know, and that's what's really hard because
returning.
I do feel so frustrated because of
Yeah,
it's not just me, it's the people I know and I bring with me.
yeah,
So, if I don't understand something, I'll bring like a speech and language therapist in, or, because you can't know everything. So
no,
it's, but no, I feel very strongly about this, Graham, and I'm really
yeah,
pleased to be
brilliant,
part of
brilliant.
this actually. So,
Perhaps we could write a book together.
yes, at some point, I'll put that on my list.
Definitely. I think this will push us forward. Kathy, you've put I am the
Yeah,
secretary of.
I'd be happy to
I am.
join. Can I just go back to Mervyn's comment? Because I know Mervyn
Yeah,
mentioned
sorry, Mervyn, you put something up. I didn't see it.
Dementia Society. Who I don't know who they are. Mervyn, are they someone? Have you got
Oh,
links?
the dementia association, is it? But I know Alzheimer's have got a
Oh,
website. Alzheimer's.
oh, don't go, the
Um,
Alzheimer's Society. Don't go anywhere near them.
no, no, and I have contacted both of those dementia. What's it called?
UK?
UK
Yeah,
and Alzheimer's Society.
Alzheimer's
Oh,
Society as well.
But effectively, I had a very nice. I think it was from Alzheimer's. A very nice polite email back saying our policies don't allow us to take individual sort of inputs
yeah.
or whatever the wording
I
was.
don't.
In
I
other
don't want to
words,
diss the
you're not
Alzheimer's
qualified
Society.
enough.
No, but actually, um, there are major issues with some of these
Yeah,
big charities. There really are. And
yeah,
actually, a friend of mine who has Lewy body dementia has been bullied horrific. I know many stories of people who have dementia or carers who have been bullied horrifically by the
yeah,
people in the Alzheimer's Society.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole. They've stolen a lot of my work without sounding awful, but they have, because I've been involved for a long time.
Yeah.
They're just this big organization who pays their CEOs massive amounts of money, and they have their own agendas. So yeah,
Yeah.
don't go anywhere near them.
No, I won't. I'll just say good
If you
evening
want to
to.
support one, I tell you what though, what would be
Yeah.
good? Innovations in Dementia. There's the Dementia Engagement and Empowerment Project, and they're a charity,
Oh,
and they have people who have dementia. You can look up Dementia Diaries, and they are wonderful because they're actually listen to the voices of the people who are experiencing these difficulties totally. So I'd always support
yeah.
them. So
So
Innovations in Dementia.
so as far as yeah, I mean that's great advice. As far as spreading the word to local communities, I know that carers sometimes have coffee mornings or something. They go with the person with dementia, and a lot of them won't be driving, but some will still. I guess for anybody that's interested in their own area, I'm quite happy to back people up with information to go along and have a little friendly chat
I think what would be good,
with those type of
possibly,
things.
would
Put
be to
something together.
create a flyer. This is what
Yeah,
I'm learning to do now. Create a
yeah,
flyer with a QR code,
yeah,
but also a link underneath. So that, because I hate all this tech, but I've had to learn, but if people can either email you or they can go through to, because there'll be grandkids who might do this for their grandparents maybe or their parents.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
you've already got a brilliant name. Have you trademarked your name?
Uh, Drive Talk
Yeah.
or Driving and Dementia.
I think
No, I
Drive.
haven't. I haven't.
No,
I haven't.
it's something to think. Without sounding awful, we've got to be quite businesslike.
Yeah,
And if thinking of maybe if you want to keep the term Drive Talk or and your brand and things like that is a good starting point, and at least then you
yeah,
can put in. We could put a few lines. Are you concerned about your loved ones driving?
yeah. No,
Click
exactly.
through and
Yeah. No,
this is.
yeah. I mean, you're right there because at the moment we're known, we're getting more widely known, but we're not big enough to really be too concerned with that. But if it does, well, when it does, not if it does, when it does take off and when many more people are aware, then that's where you're in danger of somebody replicating it with the same name. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
yeah.
idea.
You could be the next Specsavers.
Yeah. Well, why not? Let's go
There's
for it.
such a need, isn't
Is it
there?
uh, Russell? Good evening. Sorry, you've missed one or two bits, but we're recording it, so you'll be able to go back over all the interesting stuff Jane's been telling us. Is there anybody else got a question for Jane at the moment? Before I've got one or two written down. Has anybody got any experiences about people with them? I know Jane Holt, you will have, but from a more of a well, personal and assessor's point of view, do you want to mention any of it, or are you happy to?
I think it's just really, really interesting to listen because I've got experience in my family of Lewy body dementia with my grandmother, and then Alzheimer's mixed vascular with my mother-in-law.
Mm.
So, and both those things, well, the Lewy body was really before I was doing anything with driving instruction. And my mother-in-law, fortunately, had stopped driving before she got her diagnosis, but that's because she had a collision with a dust cart.
Oh,
Nothing major, but I think it frightened her, and that was, and then it sort of everything unraveled. But that whole protection thing, where a couple close in on each other from a family perspective, we experienced that. We were very much shut out, and there was this protection uh,
mm,
between them, and almost a hostility, which I guess comes from fear.
denial and
And
yeah,
then when the diagnosis was made, because I was sort of, I suppose, encouraging a check, the hostility towards me after the diagnosis was just horrific. I mean, we
mm,
got through it, but
yeah,
that's because I think that anger and that fear of the unknown, because all she knew about was basically she'd read about Barbara Windsor in the paper, and so that word made that association. But yeah,
and
like the differences are so marked, aren't they,
oh,
between the
completely,
types of
Jane.
dementia?
And the thing is,
Yeah,
what you're saying here is often we'd see someone in the memory clinic who perhaps the spouse might have died, and then just like
yeah,
you're saying, then the kids come in,
yeah.
and when they're noticing, they compensated for each other,
That's right,
and
absolutely.
actually the person's quite really struggling
Yeah.
actually.
That's
Um,
exactly what happened when my
yeah,
father-in-law passed away. The extent to which her condition was advanced was way beyond anything we could have
yeah,
imagined. It was so you've got a bereavement going on, which you
mm,
can't really process because you're suddenly thrown into this caring role
yeah,
and you haven't got a clue what to do. And that, like you say, the way that they then were protecting each other was so, I mean, it's beautiful.
yeah.
Well, it was, but yeah, and but it was quite it's really frustrating because we could have probably come in and helped earlier.
Mm.
See what
But
I
that's
mean?
so
But
classic. So
yeah, I'd imagine it is. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I
But
obviously I meet lots of families out on the driving assessments, and you can just see it. And I've got so much real empathy because I totally understand
but
what they're going through.
that's Jane, that's where if you put yourself back to that early stage before you got involved with all this, that's where possibly if there's a website or an organization you can contact and get support, and we can say, yeah, well, we've seen this
Yeah,
before, you can do that, or
yeah.
we can send someone round to sit with them, and
At least for a start, somewhere to go to talk.
yeah, take the
Because
pressure off.
it's one of the biggest things in the memory clinic, and I know the consultants brush it away often.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So,
What I was going to say, Jane, Jane M, um, was one of the things we certainly Jane Holt and myself pride ourselves on is being able to go into someone's home environment before a driving assessment. Because you generally go in the house, have a little chat, look at the license, and ask one or two questions about where they drive. And I think sure Jane would agree with me here. You can almost assess their driving before you get anywhere near the car
I
because it's
bet.
to do with alertness in the mind. It's to do with insight and these type of things. And
Mm.
but we've sort of learned that through experience, and it'd be fantastic to have some sort of package or training course to people that have got into this and want to learn more to actually explain how you can do that almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you know, it's really key that I can almost predict how someone's going to drive. For Jane, would you agree with that? Before you get anywhere near the car, to some degree, not always, but it gives you a good
Yeah. It gives you
pointer.
good insight, and same thing. I've been in situations where there's undiagnosed dementia that I can see,
Yeah,
um, and then you know that because you sort of have this. I've had these conversations with spouses before where nobody's saying the D word, but we both know that's exactly what we're talking about.
Not the driving or the dementia, do you?
yeah,
The
both.
mention D word, and of course because I've learnt the very hard way not to use the word. That was so I avoid the word unless they're using. It sounds it's because It's still quite taboo, isn't it?
Oh, it still is. However much we try to
Yeah.
reduce the stigma, it's
Yeah.
still there. And so we've always got to be quite sensitive about.
That's it. And if they're using the word, if they're saying, "Oh, it's Alzheimer's," then I'm like, "Okay, we're having an open conversation. That's fine." But I remember one time when I said the word, and it was such a hostile response, that I thought, right, okay, that's a good lesson for me to know that I'm not to bring the term into the conversation unless it's already come from them. So that was kind of
Yeah,
a good learning point. But yeah, and then you can, and often with those ones, the driving's all, and that's why you're there, because the spouse has been worried and you're there, and the driving is awful and you see it within the first 30 seconds. And then it's all about going back and just chatting through how to get them to the doctor, what support you can give to the spouse. So even though I haven't gone for a drive, I'm still possibly there for an hour or two,
Yeah,
just
exactly. That's what
talking
you got
things
to
there's
do.
through
such a
and just
need.
supporting. And
There's such a need for. I mean, what's difficult as well, though, Jane, is all of you as well. You work on a. I mean, I tend to work on a spiritual level, whatever people think, or an energy level, and actually, there's so much good that you give because of your expertise. But whether there's such a need for a perhaps some to, or to there's I think the need is for to develop training resources as you've already done, but for your other ADIs, so that everyone
Yeah,
has your expertise, and they have to already have so many years experience as all of you have.
yeah.
But like you say, you can
I,
only do so much. But to develop,
I think there's two levels of training. What everybody here's done is a very basic level of an understanding there, and then also they've got particular interest to potentially go on and do further training, including some of the stuff we've just been talking about, to get a real better insight into it. And Jane, when you asked a question, you mentioned it about you can go in and almost diagnose it's a dementia. But there's something the other Jane said earlier, which sort of brought this to my mind. Um, Cognitive impairment doesn't just need mean necessarily a dementia, does it?
no.
Because you said something about depression can lead to
mm,
cognitive impairment. And I know my mum is extremely hard of hearing. When her hearing aids aren't working, she comes
yeah.
across as having really poor cognitive
Yeah,
skills.
my mum's the same actually, Graham, and I've noticed this as well. And that whole needing to be in the world is so important, and
Yeah,
because we practice all the time.
yeah,
So yeah, so I think, um, oh, I mean, yeah, when thinking back to those self-referral memory clinics, that was because we had a good established memory clinic in Bath, and that they had good relations with the GP surgery. That's where we did the clinics. But
yeah,
whether there's something we can link up with
yeah,
the
yeah,
surgery somehow, and there's all these primary care
yeah.
groups and things.
Support places. Yeah, well, we'll have another chat. I
Mm,
mean, for the benefit of the ADIs here who haven't been involved too much with this in the past, the way the comment Jane Holt made just now about not using the D word, the way we sort of get around that, if because for us, it's the undiagnosed stuff which we're more likely to come across. Because at the moment, doctors have got a reluctance to send their people with dementia to ADIs locally. But you may come across somebody with an undiagnosed dementia
yeah,
through work or through taxi driving and all sorts. Um, and the sort of wording we use is we certainly wouldn't say, "Oh, I think you might have dementia," or anything. That's a no-go. But you can say things like, "Well, I can see that you've been a good driver. You've got all this experience. There's something happening now which I can't quite explain.
mm,
And it may be something to do with a medical condition, which I don't understand. So I recommend you just have a chat with your doctor so it can be nipped in the bud type of thing.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you can use wording like that. What you can't do, I don't think, is certainly when you know a bit about this, is you can't sort of say, "Oh yeah, driving's okay." You sort of got a bit too close to that lorry, but we can work on that. and ignore the signs that it could be cognitive impairment.
Because actually, maybe you can't work on it. Maybe that's not going to get any better.
But you can't. Yeah, exactly. With spatial awareness and stuff. So so the skill is really saying, look, I don't quite understand this because there's no reason. If you'd been driving close to an oncoming lorry all these years, you would have had a nasty head-on collision. But there's a reason why you're doing it now.
I suppose you do
rather than putting it right.
You do what you've always done, though. So instead of using the word, you talk about perhaps well, from a medical point of view, we talk about symptoms or maybe just signs that you're seeing.
Yeah, but that's the issue across the country, is that everybody here now understands, hopefully, that if you see some of these signs, it could be a cognitive impairment causing it. Could be, potentially. Whereas people that have not done any of this, and the vast majority, will go along to do a business training thing, see some of these signs, and it'd be completely missed. And this driver's allowed to carry on driving for business, getting worse and worse until something happens. It's really important to understand this at a basic level.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, brilliant. Well, has anybody else got any questions for Jane while she's here? And I really appreciate your time, Jane.
No, it's lovely to meet you all, because I so value what you all do, and you are such the gap in the market. And really, seriously, your expertise needs to be valued a lot more. You've got to show off a bit.
No, definitely. And I think this is one of those times where you come along and just give us that push and that confidence that we're on the right path, and that's really, really important.
The word "just" doesn't happen. It's not allowed. I'm just a care assistant. No, you're not just. You're not just at all. Your expertise, I think that's where it starts, is your expertise is vast and you know what you're talking about. And it's what we call tacit knowledge as well. It's this tacit knowledge that you have that you can't you get that from years of sitting with someone
and also the knowledge, as in your case, that there are literally thousands and thousands of families out there that are sitting at home right now saying, God, how do I solve this problem? I know my dad's not as safe as he used to be. And I'm suspecting I'm trying to get him to the doctor. He refuses to go. I'm suspecting he's got a dementia or something, but he refuses to give up driving. What do? I don't want him to kill anybody, but I know how it affects him. We can talk to you. We can guide you through it and tell you what the legal responsibilities are and potentially what you can do. So, really important.
What I'm doing just with these ClickFunnels at the moment is I'm marketing to families, and I'm going to America and Canada and different places as well, hoping that's, so often it may be worth doing some generic stuff. Not so, do something that's specific to the UK, but obviously generic things about those tips. But I'm thinking, when I've got these ClickFunnels done, they've driven me nuts. We could develop something. You could share my ClickFunnel if you want to. You can share it and put the driving into it as well. That could be part of the sort of training that I've got for families, or something separate as well.
Yeah, no, I'm quite happy to join forces with you.
I could be the vehicle if you want to.
Yeah, don't want to use your expertise with no return. Do something together where we can both.
It's about collaboration, though, isn't it? I see there's an absolute need, and also, but it's not only that. It does help me, doesn't it? It's one of the biggest problems. It might just be one thing that gets people to buy my training.
No, exactly. Yeah, bringing it up together. About driving now, so you can use that in your. Yeah, excellent. So, I think that's really been, for me, a really interesting session.
Graham, would it be appropriate for me just to ask Jane her view? That story I told some time ago about the 92-year-old lady whose niece was concerned about her memory. Can I share that and have Jane's view on it? Jane, it was some years ago now, and I got a request from IAM Road Smart to do a driving assessment for a mature driver. Her niece was concerned about her memory. She was losing the plot, was the word she used. So I went and picked her up. I thought, this is going to be one of those difficult conversations I'm going to say you need to give up. I said to her, where do you need to drive? She said, I go to Waitrose and I go to the golf club. I said, do you play golf? She said, oh, no, my dear. I take my sister there for lunch on a Sunday. Now, the road we went on was a steep, winding road. It was autumn. as she drove like an absolute dream. We drove to Waitrose. She parked in the disabled bay. So I've got a blue badge. I can park here. Now I've got my groceries. I'm going to reverse out now, watching that old guy behind me. She knew what she was doing. We went up this hill. She was talking about the leaves changing color. On the way, she told, and I was watching her, you watching the road, and she was perfect. And she said, "Do you know where I got this car?" And she told me 5 times the origin of her car in that space of a 50-minute drive. And I took her on, or she took herself. I didn't go all the way to the golf club. We didn't have time, but we drove down back into Stroud, down a steep hill, winding hill, quite a challenging road for anybody. Through town, as the kids from the secondary school were swarming across the road, she remarked on how nice the kids looked. Where did they go to school? I got her back and I said, from a professional driving point of view, you could pass an advanced driving test. There was nothing I could fault her on. I put the report in, and I know that her niece was a bit disgruntled because of the cognitive impairment bit. And Graham commented on that to me, and he said I should have noted that somehow. But what would you think? Is there a link at all? It seemed to be quite strange that she was such a good driver, and yet there was this. And when he got back, she said, "Where's you parked your motorbike?" He said, "No, I parked my car next to yours." He said, "Is that your motorbike there?" I said, "No, my car is next to yours, and I'm going to move it out because I had a job getting it in. It was a tight space." Not that I was scared she'd hit my car. I was scared I couldn't get out of the door. But she backed in where she'd been. She'd reversed in, and she was, from a professional driving point of view, she was fine. Would you say that's all right?
Well, these are the good questions that we should start talking about and having these case studies, actually, that we could have conversations about. Procedural memory is sort of the last type of, we have lots of different types of long-term memory, you see. So you have short-term memory, which is only about 12 seconds, actually. And then long-term memory is sort of, we have episodic memory about our own lives, our autobiographical memory, all of those things that are about us. But procedural memory, which is learning to ride a bike, perhaps learning your times tables, your hymns or whatever, learning to drive, are things that we've done over and over and over again. And if she's done that trip over and over, she's obviously was that memory is still there. She's also obviously not having particularly visuospatial difficulties, because you've got to speak as you find, Gareth, haven't you? I mean, you couldn't see anything. There was nothing there that could tell you. And this is having you. God, I do admire all of you, because it's a really hard job to have that confidence in that, isn't there? But if there was nothing to show that she had any visuospatial problems or any attentional problems or anything, as long as she was just perhaps doing that journey, what can you say? It's really difficult, isn't it? Oh, she might potentially, but why was the niece worried? That
she was losing her memory, and she couldn't.
And you said she's repeated herself, So
that's right. So that was the part the side, but that was irrelevant to her driving.
So her short-term memory was about 12 seconds long, and that's why some people repeat themselves when they start losing their short-term memory. But her procedural memory, which is what she's been muscle memory is the other word for it. Was fine, wasn't it? And this is
I've had one exactly like you're talking about yesterday, and it's a chap I've seen 3 times now. And if you met him, he presents quite childlike. So you would be really concerned and possibly not even maybe go out with him. This is the interesting thing. And yet I did a reassessment yesterday because we'd had a couple of sort of things going on, and then we did a bit of training just to see whether it was possible. Because what I have also found out about him, he's a pianist and he's learning new pieces.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's quite incredible, isn't it? And he plays just completely off. He doesn't look at music, he just teaches himself by ear. So anyway, we went out in the car yesterday, and I think his wife was kind of like a bit concerned. His license is up for renewal in August, so it's all a bit tentative. And he drove brilliantly. And it's that same thing. I've come home and I've said to his wife, there was nothing I could fault him on. I said, however, I can't say, oh yeah, great, we'll see you in another year. We've got to manage this, because we know the history, we know the condition. So yes, although there was nothing there, we're managing it. We're going to see him every 6 months. We're going to see how the DVLA renewal goes, and we're going to just take it piece by piece. And that's how we're going to manage this one. So yeah, but if you saw him just and had a
Thanks, Gareth.
conversation with him, you'd be thinking,
But
surely.
was he like that?
Right.
I think one of the questions I'd always ask the partner or whoever would be, in what way have they changed? Because maybe, I mean, frontal lobe affects everyone's personality in different ways. He sounds as if he might be a bit of have autism or some,
I
there's
suspect.
people with all
Yeah.
sorts of neurodiversities as well.
Yeah.
Which we're only now understanding more. The brain is phenomenally interesting, isn't it? We're all different. The one thing I wanted to just check with you all, legally, are you all covered on what base, on the decisions that you make?
Right. Yeah.
Because I have to make sure I'm a member of the Royal College of Nursing just to make sure I've got my indemnity.
I mean, effectively, the way it works cover-wise, because we looked at this with the lawyers and legal people in Hampshire. For a start, it's pretty much always in their car, so it's using their insurance. You need to check that they're covered for the purposes of sitting with them.
You're very brave, all of you.
Yeah, well, yeah, but we have that covered as well.
We know when to say stop.
We know when, and we know when to not even get in the car. And we've done that a few times. I've driven literally for 5 minutes and stopped it, So you don't go straight out to a busy roundabout. But coverage-wise, we are effectively doing a risk assessment of somebody with a full driving license, legally able to drive, because the doctors who drives every day when we're not there, and we're sitting with them and doing a risk assessment. But you have to underline on the report, this is not a fitness to hold a driving license assessment.
And
this is extra advice for the doctor to make, or DVLA to make that decision.
And that's where we might have to be careful with me being involved or anyone else, that we have to make sure our wording is such that this is still just advisory based on what we know in that sort of thing. I think in that way.
That's a really good point, Jane, because that's one of the reasons why I'm reluctant to get an occupational therapist sit in with us on an assessment or give us any, because it has to be just a non-medical risk assessment of the driving. Needs
to stay that way.
I think you're right. So
otherwise you'll get all sorts of legal loopholes and things.
No, but I do see you as a valuable associate, if you like.
And there's no reason why we can't develop resources.
Develop it together, on the theory side. You don't have to be part of the assessment side, but on the theory side and the advice and everything. And so there's a link between the two. So we will have to be careful with that.
Yeah, just thinking,
Yeah, no, brilliant. Well, it's 9 o'clock. That's gone really quickly and been fantastic. I found it really interesting. For those of you that have not got quite the same experience that we've had, I'm hoping you're beginning to see how interesting this subject is and challenging. And I'm sure as we go forward and you find out a bit more about it and even start getting involved with these assessments, potentially through the local stroke rehab team, which I'm happy to, if you identify your local ones, and I'm quite happy to send a flyer out, contact and say we have an assessor in your area and we can do it through the hub, through the website. I'm quite happy to do that. But thank you for all coming along. Any final questions?
Quick question, Graham. On that thing, there was somebody, I was doing a driving for work assessment for him, and his wife had had a stroke previously, and she had her license revoked for a while. Now, there was a question, I said, I can't evaluate her because she's not licensed to drive on the road.
No, right.
How does that work? If you have to, we won't do it, but how would someone assess? Because you said they're going around in circles because no one can assess her because she doesn't have a driving license.
No, there is a possibility if you're trying to get your license back, that they can give you a provisional until you've gone through driving mobility normally assessment, fitness to drive assessment, or I think you can also get a 1-day license just for the purposes of the assessment with driving mobility. So that's possible. There are ways around it, but it depends. But yeah, it's quite complicated. But that's a good point. There are so many issues on the stroke side as well.
I'll get Linda. I'll ask Linda.
Yeah, she
if
can
she'd be
contact me.
interested. I
We'll
could
walk through
email, copy you in, and see.
because I know it's gone past the time now, but just very, very briefly, the OTs I'm working with on the stroke rehab side, we're looking at trying to compare Rookwood results with driving results to try and get a bit more of a link of at what point on that scale does driving become a bit more risky.
Yeah.
Because they're sending me all the easy ones. I want a challenging one. So we can see where the cutoff point is. Anyway.
You are brave.
Graham, did you see Kathy's comment in the chat?
Sorry? No?
Have you seen Kathy's comment in the chat?
Possibly or possibly not. Sorry, Kathy. I've been
what
busy.
have I said?
The one about you're the chair of
Oh,
the...
yeah.
The secretary. Yeah.
Secretary, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I think I did see that.
So we meet 4 times a year face to face. And when we're not meeting face to face, we do a monthly Zoom, and we're always looking for speakers.
Well,
so
hold on, Master Tutors. Is this something different? Is that Graham Feast?
It is.
Have you got an AGM in September?
We have.
I'll be there. They've asked me to speak.
Oh, Grace, that's great, Graham.
So thank you. That's good to know. It's good to know you're secretary of that group. Yeah, I'm coming up. Very much looking forward to it in Coventry.
Oh, that's great. We'll be able to meet you in person.
Excellent. Yeah, brilliant. So, any final ones, or shall we say good night?
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you very much.
Very informative.
Yeah. Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.